Riding in from Blackleaf Cliffs, come for the spring, stay for the fall. It's setting the scene, session 0. Today we're joined by Jake, Jordan, and Kobe, and we're going to talk some world building. To start with introductions, my name's Kobe. I've been DMing for about 10 years now. I've been doing some world building stuff here and there. I know the other two hosts. We met a bit back in college, and I big fan of world building, kind of a forever DM. We'll talk more about our philosophies after that. Jake.
I'm Jake. I have also been running games for a while, since I was 17, which now is too many years, um, over 20 years. So, um, yeah, I met Kobe and when he was in college. I was not, but I
Gotta
was
bury the
working
lead.
there, so that's close enough. Um, yeah, that's I've been running games for a while, mostly a forever DM. Although lately I've been getting to play some more, which has been very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Jordan Throckmorton, and I also started D&D when I was 17. However, that was just a few years ago, meaning 8 years ago. And I met Kobe once again in college, taught him everything he knows about IHOP. And then I met Jake about 2 days ago, officially.
Official.
Yeah, acquaintances before then now actually know each other. Yeah. So today we're going to be covering just kind of our session 0 for world building. So we're going to talk about what kind of world we want to build. We're going to talk a little bit about our who, what, and why for each of us, about why we like world building, what we want to get out of this, and what we want to provide to you. And then we're going to start talking about we're going to start getting into the kind of setting details, like how do we build a setting from scratch, right? And we're going to start with the scope and stuff like that. But I guess without further ado, I guess let's start getting into the who, what, where, and why. We already did our names. We talked about how long we've been playing. Let's talk about some world building styles. Talk about what we want to get out of this, and what we're trying to give to the people listening. So personally, we've talked about this a little bit offline, but like I've said before, I want to create more intentional storytellers. I'm hoping to give tools to people so that when they're going to do their world building or getting ready to host a DM session or even just writing a story, um, they have more purpose and they have more direction in what they're doing rather than kind of building stuff more on the fly, which is still a very valid practice. But even having a base framework there to build more on the fly, I think is pretty strong. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, I think for um, world building, do we kind of want to go into our styles, I guess, or
Yeah.
philosophies on that? Yeah. Um, so I think for mine, the philosophy of world building is largely riffing off players, but usually I tend to build stuff as I need it, um, working from um, kind of necessity first. I do like going into more detail with stuff, but that is it's all in service to kind of the game and the story. So I will happily world build stuff around characters to give them more of a narrative experience, because that's usually what I'm going for, is sort of that immersive, more narrative feel. Ooh, cat in the background.
I mean,
We
yeah, I
want to
mean,
world build.
for me at least, I'm one of the people that Kobe was talking about who doesn't really world build. I basically just pull it out of a hat when I need it, and I improvise most of my games, if not all of my games. Very little prep. This podcast is not only for y'all, but for me as well, to learn how to actually make a grounded world if that's what you wanted to do, or make just a world that doesn't make sense but can string a plot line together. So, um, once again, I mean, I don't really world build, uh, and I don't know how or even to begin how.
Perfect for a world building podcast. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, flipping that kind of where I'm at. I'm a big fan of the prep and let players kind of just run around approach. I feel like almost a mix in a way of what both of you guys like, but maybe it's just more of a prep background on it. One of my favorite modules, I guess I've told you guys, is Curse of Strahd. It's not the most well prepared module, but it's still a very fun module. It's a classic, one of the best for the reason. Ran it back in high school for a bunch of like teenage boys who just want to run around and do whatever. And that kind of got me into this kind of philosophy of prep what you can in the background and let people kind of run around. You know, where I think this world building podcast is going to benefit even me, someone who does do world building, is going to help me focus on my scope a lot more rather than building these giant worlds that so you can do anything in there. It's like building a world that's much more contained that you can do anything in, but it's much more focused, like a village, a city, or something, which we'll kind of talk about with scope later. Um, but I'm
Something
good.
something that I notice just from our talks together, me and Kobe, is that you have a very wide scope with your worlds. You've talked about pantheon. You've talked about like governments and things of the like. For me though, I mainly pretty much all like I think the only games that I've run for you, Kobe, are in cities, and it's like in
Yeah,
Waterdeep too.
it's
So,
Waterdeep specifically. Yeah,
so
yeah. I mean, hey, that's a valid strategy because you use the Waterdeep adventure as a base, kind of, right, for
mhm.
writing the city. So it's definitely that's there. I think that's good. I
I think
mean,
like chapter 9 or chapter 10 gives you like all the information you need. You can let your players like do homework and read that, and it doesn't spoil anything, but it just gives them like the flavor of like what the city looks like. So,
yeah, but I think we can kind of pivot now from talking about like our styles into what we want to produce, what we want, what get people to get out of this. I think that's a good start there. If we're talking, outside of just the straight like good advice and stuff, one thing we want to produce over time with these episodes is for you listeners a quality mini setting, basically whatever scope we end up picking over a couple episodes, fleshing out the basis for some setting and providing it, at the end of everything, just to people either by listening or we'll create a document or something for everyone, maybe like a Google Doc and PDF to share for free. Um, and that's kind of the end goal of this is just to practice world building, make settings for people they can pick up, while they're obviously listening to us do it, learning from us, taking any advice we can give. But yeah, um, so talking about the who, we talked about the what and the why. I think the why maybe a little more detail. So yeah, so why we're doing this, honestly, if you're listening, it's because I wanted to hang out with my friends, and that's what life's about: is hanging out with your friends and making stuff. Um, I'm gonna be Jordan. You can cut this out if you want. But I'm gonna acknowledge that we're two and a half white men with microphones. Like, there's nothing new in that space to a degree. But any excuse to sit around and just chat about something we all like, which is TTRPGs, I feel like is a good enough reason to do it. And throw it into the void. So now let's get into what kind of setting we're building. It's very important when you're initially planning a setting, the scope of what you want to do. If you're planning for a TTRPG, often you want to just scope out for where you're starting. And so we have a couple a range we're going to do over time with the different set, campaigns is a way to put it, like these different groups of episodes as we build a setting. So we're looking kind of at city area. An area would be like a couple villages, stuff like that. You have a country, so a couple big cities, maybe your government, your continent, your world, and a multiverse. Those are kind of the different steps we're seeing on what level we want to build. So what are you guys thinking in terms of what we want to start off with? What's calling to you basically to start off?
Well, like the smallest is like city, right? So or village or hamlet or whatever. But cities are fun because you get kind of a spread. You get the depending on. I'm assuming we're going to go for like kind of medieval fantasy style city, very like traditional starting with, right?
yeah, bog
Um,
standard.
yeah. So like if you start off that way, then you kind of think about like, well, if you had a medieval city, you would have kind of a central area where you'd have usually like the seat of governance. You might have, kind of higher end areas, lower end areas. You might have a wall, some kind of exterior wall, and then you would have extents beyond that where you would have, you know, it's basically another almost secondary village outside the city that's a bit more um, uh, kind of workaday, the peasants and such.
Shanties. Not shanties,
Yeah,
but
well, not even shanties, just like farms. Like you got to put the
mm-hmm.
farms somewhere, and you can't really. It's hard to enclose farms with walls, so they're big. Um, so yeah,
I mean, I'm more partial to city as well, just because that's pretty much all my settings end up in a city. I don't necessarily I can't string a plot together enough to have multiple worlds. At least I don't get to that like level of campaign for any like TTRPG or anything like that. So I think I personally want to do a city, and
why do you prefer
it's the
cities? Just out of curiosity.
there's literally anything you can do in a city. Like there's always
Except
something
wilderness.
happening.
No, so
Uh,
well, actually, you can explore the wilderness depending on what you define
You
as the
can.
city. We can,
Yeah,
yeah.
mhm.
that's true. No, I
So
interrupted.
like
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, you're good. You're good. So like, there's literally something happening in like every nook or cranny of the city. So like, you can have political intrigue, you can have the rough and tumble, like roguish adventure. You can go into sewers. Like all these like sewers can be just basically dungeons. Um,
You know what else can
so
be dungeons?
dungeons.
Dungeons. Hmm.
Dungeons
Mm.
as well.
Well, I mean, I want to talk about what you're talking about though with the whole thing. Like, so I feel like everything is a city in a way. Like if you're building an area for world, if you're doing any world building for a campaign, whether you're doing
Mhm.
like an area of multiple cities, again, a city, a country, a continent, a world, a multiverse, like all the base building blocks I feel like are pretty much the same. You know, I feel like even what you're
Mhm.
talking about, like the sewers, I bet you I could fit sewer. I have fit sewers into a wilderness adventure. You know, so there's a whole talk. I think a great essay I read in the Kobold's Guide to World Building is everything's post-apocalyptic, right? All these settings are post-apocalyptic.
Mm-hmm.
Some great society existed. So maybe there
Mhm.
are just sewers in the middle of the forest. Maybe you find like a random grate that's been grown over the years, as dirt and cities and other civilizations have built.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think personally, partially, I'm more partial to the yes, also city areas, smaller stuff starting out, maybe country at most. Again, with a big picture of the country, not like super drilling down
Mhm.
into demographic details and exactly what languages are spoke where. Um, I think I'm kind of in between city area. I feel like a really if we built a city, maybe I think it'd still be good to have a supporting area outside of just a couple places of interest, maybe
Mhm.
a person or two who doesn't live in the town who's of interest to the town, maybe like there's some powerful wizard who lives a little bit out of town who's just strong enough where no one wants to the city can't really take him on and they don't want him to be a problem, like an example.
Mhm.
I think that kind of makes the city a little more alive, but I think a city would be a pretty decent start. You can fit a lot of stuff in there. You can even fit wilderness in there.
Mhm.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think we go with city. In all honesty, I'll make that executive call.
Thanks, Captain. Yes,
No
sir.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Um,
we're going city.
mhm.
Okay, I think a good also thing to talk about would be low magic, medium magic, high magic. How magic is this city? Can people go buy? Can a farmer or can someone go buy a mending spell at the store? Do they have mending stones where everyone can just grab one and it's so common, or is it hey, that using D&D or TTRPG terms, hey, this level 1 cleric, we have one of them in this city, and that base person is basically god to us. Is it like what's how
Mhm.
low, how high we want to go?
Mhm.
um I feel like probably in between low to medium, it's probably a really good sweet spot. um
Mhm.
Not even to do
I
with magic implications.
so
So,
yeah, I mean
hey,
that's an interesting take. With just I've played, and I think Kobe played with this. Like we had a cleric or a celestial warlock who used their spells to get money, and so like using magic to like just healing spells to get money. Like hey, like you have an ailment, I can cure it for this amount of money. I actually thought about that and wanted to write a book about how magic is controlled by the government. So like I don't know if that's like an avenue that we could go down, but it's just a
so
general thought.
yeah. So like, there's a thing. I'm gonna be the one who like I'm gonna be the one who's like, let's define terms, right?
Heard, yeah.
Um. So like, high, medium, and low magic, right? Usually when I'm thinking about it, high, medium, and low magic is kind of what can the magic do, right? So like, low magic is um, kind of, although this is not necessarily true of the books or whatever, but like when you're watching Lord of the Rings, kind of the most crazy magic you see is a little bit of telekinesis and like light, right? You don't really see Gandalf throwing fireballs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what magic is available is fairly mundane. It's people, but with
Oh
a
wait,
little extra,
I have a quick
right?
question. Because what about the
Yeah.
Balrog? I feel like that's kind of a
Yeah.
little more than
So
Well,
mundane.
that's
that's
fair.
exactly what I was
I'm
thinking
thinking
too, because
specifically
I'm
of
like,
what's available to people.
mhm.
Yeah,
Okay, what's
like
available to
what's
what's
available
what's
to
someone
Like the
casting? That's the
right,
magic part we came.
okay, okay.
right.
So the
So like
PCs are leveled, but the world is not. So I get
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're
But like
extraordinary.
what's available to people, right? And again, this is not necessarily true in the books for Tolkien, but like in Lord of the Rings and the films, like you don't really see um Gandalf doing the kinds of things that you see in, like, if you watch the Harry Potter films, the things that Dumbledore does, right?
Mhm.
Like they seem like wildly different power levels of wizard just because of the things that you see them do on screen, right? And so I would say like the Dumbledore example is high magic, right? And then Gandalf is more low magic. There is magic, but what it is low level superpowers kind of. But then there's like a second axis, which is access, right? The ubiquity of magic, right? So like, the Harry Potter universe is high magic, high ubiquity. Everybody has access to it. It is integrated into all levels of social life. It is casual use. It's commodified. Whereas again, Lord of the Rings is the other end of the scale. 2 people, 3 people in that story have access to ready magic that they can use. It seems fairly limited. It seems fairly gated. And to most of the characters, it's pretty obscure, right? But you can play with those
Mhm.
axes independently, right? Usually, when I tend to run games, I tend to run games that are settings that are high magic, but access is low. So it's like, yeah, there are folks who are capable of, lifting continents into the air with their minds and summoning giant horrors from beyond human knowledge. But there's only like 4 of those people in the world, so the likelihood you're going to run into them is pretty low. And the idea of being like, if you're an average person in an average out of the way town, you may have never seen magic, but you maybe have heard of the hub town down the way, the one that's like on the major trade route. Oh, they've got like a priest there, and he can cure light wounds, right? Like he could totally mend a broken bone
Mhm.
easily with a prayer. But you'd have to go to like the big city. You'd have to go to like somewhere that has a lot more of a cosmopolitan
Mhm.
population to find like really intense magic, right? Um, Granted, that's usually how I run worlds, but that's like it's those two axes, right? It's like it's not just high or low magic; it's high or low, and then how dispersed it is throughout the population, because it has
Mhm.
big effects on economies and things like that.
No,
Mhm.
yeah, with the dispersal parts, like one thing I was saying was how common is it? I've played with the
Mm,
idea in settings of everything down to prestidigitation. You can go buy that on a cantrip. You can go buy a stone that has it's very common or mending, right? Where like that
right.
completely uphand like if you're a shipwright and you can just buy a stone of mending that
Yeah.
drastically reduces. You buy 10. They're probably so cheap you can buy 10 of them. Even if
Right.
if you do ship sailing, like that's it messes with the economy in that way. And another part,
Mm-hmm.
I think, it's like in terms of power level, like you're talking about these big, powerful people. One rule I like to play with sometimes in my world, I haven't like figured out a good number, is basically the ratio of powerful people. Let's say again,
Yeah.
using D&D terms because it's most common, level 1 to 20. How do you think? Like just getting to level 1, right? The players, you are already so abnormal. You are a rarity by being level 1 in the first place. Um, and I like to think of it on a scale of like, okay, every step you go up, every level, or even every tier, how to what scale does that get shrunk? Are you going from maybe 10% of the population's level 1, but by the time you get to level 5, maybe it's only 1%, but then level 10 is 0.1%, and that kind of idea, because it lets you know, like, hey, are your powerful players? Because even in like you're talking about Lord of the Rings, right? You have these. I know Gandalf is not human, but let's do it in a
Right.
D&D analog, right? Let's say Gandalf was a human wizard who's just very powerful. Um, how many of him exist, right? Because just one of them
Yeah.
existing at that level, level 20 wizard is everyone's problem, everyone in the world's problem.
Right.
And so I think about that's what you have to think about is like how does that affect the city? Like how much do they care that there's the level 5 wizard who can cast fireball and blow up the town? You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big deal. Does
Yeah. The
having one? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say like so the barometer I use in my home setting, when I tell people about it, I'm like, okay, if we're doing D&D terms, I'm like, from levels 1 to 5, there are thousands of tens of thousands of those people in the world, in a world of millions, right? Um, there's tens of thousands of those people you could find who could do up to a fifth level wizard's kind of work. And it's like between 5 and 10, it's like there's thousands of those people. And then, you know, 10 to 15. Oh, my cat is really screaming today. Um, 10 to 15 is like hundreds. And then above that, you're talking double digits. There may not be a level 20 character for every class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's usually what I give them, because that way it kind of gives them the notion of like, one, they should feel like when they're getting into, that those I feel like it matches kind of the tiers of play that D&D lays out, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, local saviors of the kingdom, saviors of the world, saviors of
Mm-hmm.
the multiverse, kind of. um it sort of it lines up a little bit with that. If you have a lot more of each of those categories, it makes the heroes feel a little bit more like they're less singular,
Mm-hmm.
which can be an intent. Like, you can do
Mm-hmm.
that and be like, no, 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 you guys are nobodies, and you're going to stay nobodies for a long time, even as you gain lots of power, because hey, a lot of people have power.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of what vibe you want.
Yeah, I mean, another aspect of, I think, thinking about the magic in the world is how difficult it is to plan, whether that's like encounters or just things in general when you go into like magic is a common state in the world, because it might have to like you might have to do more work to make sure that the players in your campaign understand, like, hey, there's certain aspects that everybody knows, like creating a dossier of like, yeah, these level spells are the most common, so don't try to impress somebody with it. They're gonna be like, scoffing at you, like, oh yeah, my niece can do that or something like that. But like talking about like low magic, like I run low magic just because I don't like to do prep, and anything for like magical means, like most of my uh villains or whatever is just a guy that can hit hard and can get hit a lot, and so that makes combat dull. But caveat to my running of D&D is that I don't really do combat all that often. Kobe can attest.
Jordan is one of those players who I often go, please find a system that's better suited for your game style.
So yeah, I mean, but I love D&D. So it's the
Does it
most.
love you?
It does. We
Not.
have a relationship that we have cultivated over many many years and many trials and tribulations. But no, this is like what I'm getting at is the bandwidth that you have to have as for a DM for prepping for Magic. It could be a negative depending on like how new you are or how like veteran you are. So like the scope for this one is like, are we not only thinking about like high level or high magic systems or low magic systems, and then the actual like dispersing of it, but also how intuitive do we want to make this setting for other people to use? Like I know we're going to try by making the setting like either a doc or they can take notes with the podcast, but we'll see where we go with that. But another aspect is how difficult do we want to make it? Because the more difficult it is, I think the more flavor and style it has, because it just diversifies the portfolio that you can actually do.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of prep and what people are going to do, I think one benefit we have of if the plan from the beginning is to make this for other people to also use, is we can add a level of genericness to it that makes
Mm-hmm.
that cuts down on that prep and that addition. Almost like I think it'd be really funny if we release a Mad Libs version where you just got to fill in the blanks, print it out and just fill in all. You're like, okay, but then this is the city's name now. This is the God of War or whatever. So in terms of the high magic stuff we're talking about in prep, I actually don't even think it's much different between the three, because the idea is if you show up with the idea of what you want, then you know what you're trying to produce. So if we say, hey, this is a high magic setting, if players are gonna play in this, here's the expectation, like you're saying, like a dossier, like magic shops, like hey, outside of this city, if you want to expand this more, outside of here, magic shops are common. Here's the item levels you'd probably see, like and it's we used saying like instead of levels 1 through 10, we could just be like, for probably your low level adventurers to people who are saving like cities, we can we can make our own scale or whatever, like using the WotC base for adventuring kind of groups. um I think that would help us to find that scale too. That would help kind of get that prep stuff going, because we can kind of establish a language over time of, hey, here's kind of what we're looking for, and we just write it out every time we do it. We add it in a supplement or something. So I think maybe to start, I think medium to low magic, like I mentioned earlier, I think is a good spot to hit. We can shoot
Mhm.
for medium magic in the world, but let's say low availability. Maybe the city has a magic item specialist person, um,
Mhm.
just like that kind of scale of maybe one, maybe someone specialized that can build stuff even, right? But maybe not,
It depends on how big the city is. I'm thinking when I think of city, I mainly think of like the capital.
I think
Um,
we should definitely go smaller to start. I'm
okay.
thinking maybe not even a port city, like a just us a well city that has a good resource
Hmm.
that's like kind of their economy's built around. They probably have a wall, I'd imagine. Maybe it's like enough for a city guard.
Hmm.
Let's talk on the scale. You're thinking like, I think capital's too big, so we have like we could do like a hamlet of what I think hamlet's like less than 20 people. Then there's village, which is about 100 to a couple hundred people. Then you have city, which is we'll say a couple thousand people. I think that's probably the biggest we want to cap that at. And then you have like a major city, like a port city, or something that can sustain more people. Such as since we're doing low magic, everything sustaining these people is going to be actual farming, actual fishing, right? We think of what resources are nearby. So, in terms of the different kind of areas we can build, we have a city, which is like a village, hamlet, anything that's just like one location kind of idea. We have an area, which would be multiple cities, maybe villages, whatever combination, maybe some other locations. You have your country, even bigger, continent, world, and multiverse. These are the different steps we can have for what settings we're creating. As we kind of talked about, I think a city might be the best for us. Maybe like a bigger city, about 1,000 people. We don't want to go like capital level. But I think just one strong location with a couple areas of interest outside would be pretty good to start off. What are you
Hmm.
guys thinking? What do you guys feel we need to build a city setting? I know Jake, you mentioned earlier governance. We need to know who's
Yeah,
ruling it, and I probably again we can do some small details for a bigger kingdom this city is in. That's probably
yeah.
pretty important.
Well, yeah, yeah. You like, I mean, for first, it's like you need kind of the local ruler, um, probably whoever the local enforcement is, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then from then on down, you'd need kind of um, your cultural and social leaders, right? So, like, if you have um, a mercantile base, or if you have a production base for different kinds of wares, right? Who kind of is the spokesperson for that within this city, right? And they may not be it
Hmm.
may not be an official title. It may just be everybody in town kind of looks to you know Dagmar the ironsmith or whatever as, oh, this is the person who kind of speaks for all the shops, that kind of thing,
Hmm.
right?
The community leader, just the person everyone
Yeah,
likes.
the community leaders, yeah. Because that also gives you kind of avenues into it's sort of top down, right? You start here and you kind of start branching and branching and branching, and you get more and more detail. Um, because like once you have one character, okay, well, who must they know? Who must be connected to them? And then you keep doing that.
Yeah, I think talking magic too would be good. Like we'd mentioned,
Mhm.
like a low medium setting. Does talking about like does this place have access to magic items? Not even like a store. Just is someone making them? Can someone repair them here? That talking about digging into the economy of that and that idea. Um,
Hmm.
Mhm.
I think figuring out what is their resource here. I think any good city over a couple hundred people needs to have like a kind of a reason to have that many people there. Right. This is pre modern age, so sure they have farming, but it's not really industrial yet, even with magic stuff. So that'd be a good thing to figure out. I think we can kind of talk about like our plot points, what we want. I think that'd be a good place to start too. Would be what's going on in this town. We can say like is it vampires? Is it other undead? Is it
Like a
fae? Is it
thieves guild or
yeah?
even like lower
Who's
magic of like that regard.
is it the
It
bigger
could
city?
be as simple as like as far as like asking good questions about it, being like the first question is, okay, why is this city here, right?
Hmm.
You start there and then you say, okay, now why might this city not be here if heroes don't show up,
Hmm.
right? It's that kind of like, this is how we got here, and this is what might happen if we don't do something about it,
Like
right?
an impending doom, kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think also be good would be I think a good topic would be talking about the setting and what magic races we want. Because obviously, if you're showing up to this playing fifth edition, or you're playing Draw Steel or Pathfinder, you're kind of expecting, especially if you're playing Pathfinder in fifth edition, you're expecting a pretty generic fantasy based orcs, dwarves, so on, demonic
Yeah.
races, because copyright for tieflings, so on and so forth. Versus Draw Steel, you might be looking for more bespoke, a little more specialized, little not counterculture, but you're pushing out of the normal. You're pushing out of the normal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think maybe even I think it'd be fun just to start is if we just went orc, like super, like Lord of the Rings standard,
Yeah.
halflings, orcs, humans, dwarves, angels, like the
Elves.
bigger creatures. I think even just going like dwarves, elves, orcs, humans, I think you can do so much by limiting yourself. But we don't have to decide this now. It can just be like we can figure out what's in the area next time. I think even we're talking about like what happens if the people don't show up. I think even just talking about like what are three schemes that are going on right now. They don't have to be evil, but just what are three
Mhm.
ongoing plots in the background that
Mhm.
this week, maybe towards the end of us talking, like the end of the initial part is just like what are some big picture things we maybe want, after we have some people kind of written out, some relationships kind of detailed,
Mhm.
all the big picture stuff. Looking at our notes, what we'll start with next time. So starting with building the setting after we figure out the scope and stuff is going to be culture. Is what we'll be talking about. So I think that'd be a good time to kind of dig into that kind of stuff, and then deal with the races and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do we want to do something where we kind of like when we're talking about the culture, whatever, we're going to start off the next time. Kind of everybody comes up with one that they bring in,
What do you
and
mean
then
Just
one?
show
Like
and
one?
tell.
kind of yeah. So it's like so that way you kind of um, it's like all right, well if we're going to start off with what's in this town next time, then it's like okay, well one of us takes who's the head of the guards, who's the most profitable merchant in town, or the most profitable like you know most successful
Mhm.
Okay,
business person.
I think that's a good one. I think you already nailed some. We should do the businessman. Who's the most successful businessman? Who's
Mm,
who's the leader of the guards and their
mm,
philosophy, and then I think who's the strongest magic user in town.
mm.
And we
I like
no
that.
no. You want to do that one, Jordan?
No, nose goes on that one.
I'll do the magic user one. Who's the magic user? I think in no communication to each other until we're done. I think would be fun. Just like you have to pick your scale. I think this will be a good exercise because we can show up and go, okay, why did you pick this? Like, why did you pick? Why is
Yeah.
the magic person? If I come up with level 20 person for this small little town, I better have a real good reason for explaining why this person's a level 20 person living in this random town, right? And why I
Mhm.
thought that was would bring thought that'd bring good stuff to the story good stuff to the story. Um,
Mm.
Mhm.
so I think that leaves Jake or Jake and Jordan. Who wants guards? Who would want business person?
You want to flip a
I can do
coin?
either.
You want to flip a
Uh,
coin to make it interesting? I'll flip an SD card.
there you
I
go.
have a coin right here too if you want.
There you go.
Do you want Lexar 128 or do you want the back?
I'll take the back.
Okay. Okay. I get picked because it landed on Lexar 128
Okay.
front.
All right.
I'll
See
do.
how we didn't see it though?
I trust him. I trust him.
Now you saw it. I'll do the businessman.
Okay.
See, and look, the businessman didn't show us until after. Wow, wow. Now sounds good.
Very
Okay, so that leaves
businessman
you done with
coded.
the guard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get here. We're gonna get back to the next episode, Jake. And it's gonna be guards, guards, guards. That's the whole
Exactly.
It's just awesome.
No,
Okay,
are you looking for the
Like
elevator?
I'm listening to a Terry Pratchett book right now.
I'm about to start reading. I can't remember the name of it. I'm about to start reading one. I'm finishing up a book for work, and oh yeah, I guess do you want to close out? Also talking a little bit about media we're watching right now. I feel like it's at the end. You can cut it out. So what we're watching right now, what we're ingesting. So mine actually is nonfiction. I just read this book called Tuesday with Maury. It's a classic book written by Mitch Albern about an old professor he has with ALS that he reconnects with before he's dying. It's nonfiction, but one of the things I did get from this book, honestly, is like um, how to write someone who's not aloof is the right word, but who's made peace with like the world, in writing, like the monk character who's studied for 1,000 years and meditated and has made peace with life and death and everything. Reading that book genuinely made me picture that a lot easier, of someone who like knows they're gonna die even soon and has just like made peace. Beautiful book, definitely recommend it. But yeah,
Nice.
what you guys, Jake, you're mentioning you're watching.
Yeah. So
Real
well,
quick.
I'm doing
Reading
the
it.
audiobook for Terry Pratchett's The Truth, which is one of the Discworld books, and it is part of the. I think it's like his Industrial Revolution set where he does kind of different books on the ways in which the Industrial Revolution came. Basically, it's his fantasy version of how the Industrial Revolution came to London, because a lot of it is
Mhm.
based on actual London.
Mhm.
But the truth is based on the newspaper and how newspapers started in Ankh-Morpork. So I'm doing that one. I just started watching the third season of Gendy Tartakovsky's Primal, um, which is a fun cartoon. It like a lot of Gendy's stuff, it's really cool because Gendy does not believe in overwriting anything. So there's barely any dialogue in the entire series. Many episodes have no dialogue at all.
Mhm.
So it's a really cool resource for kind of just watching for visual storytelling. So it's one of the ones I kind of go back to every now and again because it's loads of fun. It's a barbarian dude with his dinosaur best friend having adventures. It's great.
Great campaign right there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and for me, I'm reading Cradle.
Hmm.
So just a cool power system. It's like progresses well, almost too well for me. Um, just seeing how the powers develop and actually make sense to me. But then for like media that I'm watching Peaky Blinders again. Um,
Hmm.
so
I
like
still need to watch that one. Yeah.
it's insanely good. It's about criminals and it's in a city, so it's right up my alley.
Perfect. You can show ready
Uh,
next week. Next time we record.
I know, so I'm excited. But yeah, I mean that's pretty
Yeah.
much all the media that I'm ingesting right now.
Do want to add one thing with your Cradle comment? More specifically, the series is Cradle by Will White, the first book being Unsold, just in case anyone looks it up. I need everyone to read this series. It's my favorite, probably my favorite book series. I wouldn't say of all time, but it's up there. It's up there.
Yeah.
Um, it's peak. Anyways, sounds good. I think
Will, right? If you're watching this,
Will White, if you're
hello.
watching this, hit me up. I love Cradle. Let's talk. I can't do anything for you, but I just want to talk. Um, anyways, I think that's basically it for setting the scene. Session 0. Um,
Nice.
Goodbye.